KVNU.
The information from the pretty balanced perspective.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Extermination. The Cache County Council took County Executive David Zook to the woodshed for a thorough thrashing at a special meeting Tuesday to consider his controversial 2023 budget proposal. At their first meeting since, the council and county executive traded public barbs over next year's budget. The council dissected that document and directed significant changes when council members peppered Zook with pointed questions about specific line items in his budget. He confessed that he was not familiar with details of every line item and referred them to appropriate department heads for that information. Under pressure from Paul Borup for information as the author of the budget proposal, Zook accused the council vice chair of grandstanding to score political points rather than legitimately seeking information. During the special meeting, the members of the county council also raked the county executive over the coals about the budget process and his failure to schedule normal budget committee meetings leading up to the 2023 budget submission. The executive is scheduled to face off against write-in candidate Mark Ensign in the general election of November 8th. The council members ended their special meeting by moving to go into executive session to privately discuss the character, professional competence, or physical mental health of an individual under Utah Code 52-4-2051A. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, patchy fog after midnight, low 15 to 20. Patchy morning fog on Friday, partly sunny in the morning, then mostly cloudy and a 40% chance of snow in the afternoon, high around 40. Chance of snow or rain mixed with snow or all rain will be intermittent throughout pretty much the entire weekend. 40 has been our high today. It's 38 right now at KVNU. Bring back the sounds you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Even though the weather's grown colder, you still have time to have your fruit trees pruned. Logan Extermination says your trees need to be trimmed back in order to achieve success next year. And this is the first step to a bountiful harvest. However, you could do more bad than good if you don't know what you're doing. Save the headache and call Logan Extermination today and get a jump on tree pruning. Prices will vary depending on your needs. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. Two of America's land-grant institutions, Utah State University and Fort Valley State of Georgia, recently signed a memorandum of understanding establishing a framework to collaborate on activities of mutual interest. USU President Noel Cockett joined the Fort Valley State President Paul Jones for the signing last Friday in Georgia. Dr. Jones is a former Aggie student athlete who excelled on football and track and field teams of the early 1980s. He said the idea is to find ways these two universities can partner.
Our pathway forward as institutions today, we can do so much more together. And there's some opportunities that we when President Cockett and I get together, we're like, two kids, just exploring all the different options and opportunities that we can create for our students, for our faculty, and for our institution. So it's very exciting.
He said last summer, 3 top FVSU student scholars participated in a summer research academy at Utah State.
Really life-changing for those 3 students who had never been west and had an opportunity to work alongside of faculty there, and what we hope to happen happened, and that is that these students made an important connection with Utah State, and were able to really be exposed to other options and opportunities that they may not have seen.
FVSU, one of the country's 107 historically black colleges and universities, has the only vet tech program in Georgia, while Utah State is establishing a veterinary school. And authorities say an Idaho high school student died yesterday morning after being hit by a vehicle while walking near the school. The Meridian Police Department spokesperson, Kelsey Johnston, says officers responded to a report of a vehicle hitting a pedestrian around 7:45 a.m. The pedestrian, a student at Meridian High School, died at the scene. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Keeping you informed. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.
With the arrival of fall, potential heavy rainstorms, fallen leaves, and debris, the Cache Stormwater Coalition would like to remind you of a few things to be mindful of. Clean out all the leaves and debris from your rain gutters. Use a broom or rake to remove leaves and debris from the top of storm drains, as clogged storm drains can lead to flooding. Don't keep piles of yard waste in your yard, on the sidewalk, or street. Use a green waste recycle bin, and check with your local city office on where to place collected leaves for pickup. And when it snows, remember to keep the snow away from curb and gutter and storm drains. We can all make a difference if we do our part. Brought to you by the Cache Stormwater Coalition.
Hi, Cache County. It's Mark Ensign. As the election for a new county executive winds down, ask yourself this question. Do you want more of the conflict and dysfunction that's been going on all year? Or do you want to get back to the business of serving Cache County and our residents? To restore trust, transparency, and cooperation, write in Mark Ensign for Cache County Executive.
To learn more, visit ensignforcachecounty.com. Paid for by Mark Ensign.
This is former Cache County Executive Lynn Lemon. I wholeheartedly support Mark Ensign. I hope you will make the extra effort to write him in for County Executive.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. I'm Jason Williams. I'm really excited about this, and we're going to jump right in to make use of our time with our next guest here on the show because, one, this is a high-profile race. It's getting national attention, and it also is an important race. Some have argued that this is not just something that determines the future of Utah's representation at the federal level, but also depending on how this race turns out, what could be the future of our country, our elections, and more. So understandably, a lot of people plugged into this one, even from outside of Utah. But also here on the show, this marks a first in several cycles. We are excited to say with this interview today, we officially got to every single candidate, from county races, state legislative races, on up to the federal races in Congress, and now today the United States Senate. Checking in here with independent candidate for the United States Senate here in Utah, Mr. Evan McMullin. And Mr. McMullin, appreciate taking some time for KVNU today. And I like to start these interviews always by saying, appreciate you filing to run. It's not an insignificant thing for a person to do. It is life upending, to say the least. And if people didn't file to run, we wouldn't have competitive races. And maybe that's a great place to start. This is the first competitive federal race in Utah in quite some time. How does it feel to be a candidate making that the case?
Well, Jason, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you and your listeners here today. I would say that, I'm a big believer that you don't get accountable government if you don't have competition, right? If there aren't, competitive elections in our state or anywhere at any level, frankly, you just don't get accountable leadership. And we need that because we're facing a lot of challenges in our state and in our country, and we need our leaders to be putting our interests first. And it's been almost half a century since we've had a competitive general election for the U.S. Senate in Utah, and it just shouldn't be that way. So I'm proud of what we're doing here. I mean, we're building a coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents who want to replace Mike Lee because they know our politics are broken. and they know there's a better way forward. And we're showing the rest of the country that Utah's different, and that, we're not going to go along with Washington's broken politics and all the division and extremism that prevents us from solving problems like inflation and high cost of health care and, lack of water and on and on. I think we've had enough. We need to come together to find common ground to solve problems. And because we've taken that approach, it has made this race competitive, and we're very excited about that.
And I have to say, we are as well. I agree with you. The competition is healthy. It keeps everyone on their toes. And here in Utah, unfortunately, it doesn't happen often enough. So I'm glad this race is playing out. I'm also glad that this has been, for the most part, a respectful race. You as a candidate, you can't speak for what the PACs might be doing on your opponent's behalf, and he can't either. But the two of you have maintained a level of dignity, I think, that represents Utah. I'm excited to see that. It's been a robust campaign. The one debate that took place, hosted by the Utah Debate Commission, was really kind of policy heavy, and you scored a big point in that debate that stuck with me when your opponent pulled out what he's known for, a pocket constitution. You said, the Constitution is not a prop. So I started reading further at your website, and you list, you call them principles for renewal. You list these 12 principles that you say are things we all need to be thinking about right now because there is so much at stake. And how does that tie in? How do these principles tie in with your comment there at the debate? What is it that you mean by saying, that we can't use the Constitution as a prop to get elected?
Well, thanks for the question. Yeah, you're referring to my principles for renewal, which anyone can find at evanmcmullin.com. If anyone wants to understand, what makes me tick, what makes Evan McMullin tick, reading those principles will help you understand what motivates me politically. And hopefully many of your listeners will find common ground with them. I think most will, in fact. I think most of us here in Utah share a commitment to our Constitution and a commitment to our core ideals that we're created free and equal, a commitment to truth, a commitment to the rule of law and freedom of speech, and all of these just basics that nowadays in our politics I think are under threat. And one of the reasons why they're under threat is that I think we've lost a commitment to some of these things. We pay lip service to them, but we're not often enough, I think, truly committed to them, our ideals and the Constitution in particular. And in the case of my opponent, he's somebody who, as you point out, is known for pulling the pocket Constitution from his suit coat and waving it in the air when he wants to make a point. But the Constitution can't just be a prop. When I was in my early 20s, I swore an oath to defend the Constitution as a young officer with the CIA, and I was volunteering to serve overseas undercover to take out terrorists who had attacked us on 9/11. And I took that oath dead seriously, and then put my life on the line over and over and over again to live up to that oath. And Senator Lee, unfortunately, has not done that in my view. In 2020, he didn't like the results of the election, and I get it. It's no fun to lose elections. I've been there. We all understand that. But with something much bigger is at stake, and it's the American Republic. It's the free country that we enjoy here. Senator Lee tried to overturn the will of the people because he didn't like what they had decided. They didn't like that the people had rejected a president from his party, and so he tried to recruit fake electors to overturn the will of the people. And that was an egregious betrayal of the Constitution. I think one of the worst, if not the worst, of any senator in our history. I mean, it was a tremendous betrayal. And this is a state that was founded by people who sacrificed greatly to achieve freedom. And my ancestors, came here after great sacrifice in the mid-1800s. And many others have sacrificed greatly over 14 generations of our country. People have served in the armed forces and many others. And Senator Lee was willing to throw all of that away in order to protect his power and that of his allies. And so during the debate, when he pulled out his Constitution, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was just utter hypocrisy. And I, like I said, I put my life on the line more than I can remember to defend the Constitution, and I've done it around the world. and I still am committed to that oath, and that's why I said what I said during the debate.
For listeners, you can read these principles for renewal and much more, actually, a whole list of priorities from Evan McMullin at the campaign website, evanmcmullin.com, and I've linked to that on our Facebook page. They're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a lot of different ways you can connect. And a quick reminder as well, ballots are out there. If you didn't know that and didn't receive one, get in touch with the county clerk's office as soon as possible. Monday is the deadline to mail your ballot. Tuesday by 8 p.m., the deadline to drop off in person or at a drop box on Election Day. You also can register on Election Day and file a provisional ballot if you find there is a problem with your registration or you thought you were registered and are not. So vote.utah.gov. Bringing things back to a local perspective, Evan, this is something that you made a comment recently. You praised Governor Cox for putting a focus on rural issues here in Utah. And here in northern Utah, we're glad to see that as well, because we've often felt sort of like the forgotten part of Utah. Everything's so centered around Salt Lake and the Utah County area, with most of the people living there, understandably. And you've compared a focus to rural issues to, economic improvement, but also in some ways even a national security issue. What do you feel, if elected, of course you'll be one of many in the Senate, what do you feel is the most important thing you could take to Washington, D.C. as a United States Senator to solve some of the challenges facing rural Utah?
Well, I think the number one thing is just, because I'm standing up as an independent and that I'm running as an independent so that I can stand up to party bosses of both sides. And what that will mean is that in this divided Senate, it'll still be divided after this cycle. How divided, I mean, we don't know, but it'll still be very divided. And standing between the two parties as an independent, it will mean that Utah has the deciding vote on almost every piece of major legislation that goes through the chamber. And that will make Utah the most influential state in the union. We hear a lot about senators like Joe Manchin or others, and, they're willing to stand up to party bosses. And because of that, they get their way, and they have a ton of influence in Washington for their state. But I think it's time that Washington pay a little bit more attention, or a lot more attention, to what we think here in Utah. And if we prevail in this way, standing between the two parties, having that deciding vote on really every piece of legislation that goes through the Senate, it will make Utah the most influential state in the union. And we'll hear a lot every week. What does Utah think? That's what the national press will ask. And with that, I know we'll be able to do a tremendous amount of good for ourselves and for the country. And part of that is ensuring that our rural communities are thriving. And I think the way to do that is through economic diversification. I want to see rural communities continue to diversify, to have different industries, to have new opportunities. And I think what we need to do to get there is to be more serious about investing in infrastructure in our rural communities. So what do I mean by that? I mean making sure that broadband is top-notch everywhere in Utah. It means, ensuring that there's medical care and good schools. Because right now, after the pandemic, you can work in one place, wherever you want. You can live wherever you want and then work for a company, far, far away, if you've got that connectivity through broadband. But even if you have that, but the schools are bad and there's not a clinic or a hospital, then you worry about, taking your family, to places where you'd otherwise want to live. And so we've got to change that. So that's my vision, and having the influence we could have in the Senate by having a senator who's willing to work with both sides and to stand up to both sides, thereby having the swing vote on really all kinds of issues. That will give us the influence we need to have a voice. And I'm talking about our rural communities, and make sure that we get the kind of investment that we need for our rural communities to thrive. We send billions of dollars as a state to the federal government every year. Some of that needs to come back to us so that we can make sure these communities are thriving.
one of the probably given scenarios that you'd be injected into if elected next Tuesday as you're sworn in, as Congress begins their work in January. It's pretty obvious at this point that if the Republican Party wins even a working majority, they plan to try and make some changes, some tweaks to Medicare and Social Security. Democrats responding to this, of course, in the midst of an election, are saying, well, no, if they win a majority, even a working majority, they plan to make cuts to Social Security. You would find yourself right in the middle of this as it begins, right? How do you navigate that?
Well, I think first and foremost, let me say that I think Social Security is a critical part of our social fabric in America. I mean, we've all worked long and hard and paid into it, and our parents and grandparents depend on it. They worked hard, they paid into it. I've been paying into it for years. My parents rely upon it. At this rate, so will I. It's an important part of our social fabric, and that doesn't mean that that we can't do different things to make it stronger, and that's certainly something that can always be discussed. But right now we hear ideas about making cuts or ending Social Security, and including my opponent, who we've just recently found a video of him talking to donors, pledging to them that he will end Social Security, that he'll pull it up by its roots. And I just think that's wrong. I think that's cruel and wrong. And it's extreme, too. Most Republicans don't support that. And most Democrats, of course, don't support that. Most Americans understand the importance of Social Security. Some people want some reforms here and some reforms there. That's fine. We can discuss and debate all of that. But Senator Lee wants to end Social Security, and we found this tape of him talking to his donors, this video, and we put it into an ad so that all Utahns understand how extreme he is on that issue. My view is that, yes, we need to balance the budget. We've got a fiscal situation in our country that's completely out of control, a national debt of $31 trillion, et cetera. But we should not balance the budget on the backs of our seniors. We've made a commitment to them. They paid into the system, and we have to honor that commitment for this generation of seniors and for those who come after. And there are other ways to get our fiscal house in order. Avoid unnecessary wars. Stand up to special interest groups that cause us to pay more for prescription drugs than anyone else in the industrialized world, and more for healthcare in general than almost anyone in the industrialized world. We can still get our fiscal house in order without doing such great harm to seniors, without ending Social Security, as my opponent Mike Lee would like to do. It's a very extreme position he has, and it's not good for our seniors here in Utah or around the country. And that kind of extremism in policymaking, I think, in general, is just not helpful. It just isn't helpful. But he tends to be that way. He tends to be more on the extreme end of things. And again, it just doesn't serve our state well.
You said in the first part of your campaign that one of your frustrations with news coverage, elected officials, and everything in between is that there was a lot of criticism, but no solutions being offered. And I appreciate that you've held true to that in your campaign literature and in what you've said. And you've mentioned here that the debt, you've called the current level of spending reckless at the federal level, protecting Social Security as opposed to cutting it or even doing away with it. I appreciate this. You mentioned in a long list of things that need to be a part of a full package dealing with some of these issues, you mentioned the putting a focus on bringing manufacturing jobs back into the country that have gone overseas, something that would be a huge boost to rural areas here in Utah. Where do we start on that?
Well, I think it's, we've got to create the incentives for the companies to come back, and government has a role to play in that, and I'm not for, government, handing out, welfare to corporations and sort of sustaining them over time. They need to be able to compete and stand on their own. But I think it's naive to think that, that we can't create incentives for the return of critical manufacturing. I think there are some important ways that government and business can work together so that we do strengthen our supply chain. And, I'm someone who also believes in trade. I think it makes us stronger, but we need to do it in a smart way so we don't hurt our communities, especially our rural communities. But now in this day and age when the world is so unstable, and my prediction is, as a former CIA officer, the world is going to become less stable in the decade to come. China's threatening Taiwan, Russia's invading countries, and on and on. And so, if China's in a 100% COVID lockdown, for example, we can't trade with them. If they've invaded Taiwan, we can't trade with them. It's hard to trade with Ukraine or Russia during this, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, et cetera. So we've got to bring back, incentivize the return of more critical manufacturing. It'll create jobs in our rural communities, but it also has national security value because it means that we can produce the things we need to produce to keep us safe here. And it also helps us with inflation because, we can meet demand with supply, which right now we're failing to do. And, I would have, for example, voted in favor of the CHIPS Act, which was a bipartisan bill that passed into law with the support of Republicans and Democrats in the Senate that would help us not have to pay as much for cars and other goods we need in our homes. Senator Lee voted against that. And it's very extreme. He takes these very extreme positions that get in the way of actually just solving problems for people. And I just don't think we can afford to do that any longer.
Evan McMullin, independent candidate for United States Senate in this race, making it competitive. Again, two things we don't get to say very often here in Utah, independent candidate and competitive race. But I think this is good for the state. It's good for the country. And I appreciate, again, that you filed and that you have been running. Without candidates, we don't have choices. So listeners out there, I hope you appreciate this. I hope you take the time to investigate the candidates, fill out your ballot, make sure you postmark it by Monday, no later than that. If you don't postmark by Monday, do not mail it. Drop it off in person at the clerk's office or at a drop box Monday evening or Tuesday on Election Day. You have until 8 p.m. when polls close to get your ballot in person at a drop box or the clerk's office. And this applies whether you're listening here in Cache Valley or whether you're one of our listeners in Box Elder, Weber County, Davis County, all of them working under the same rules. And more information on voting at vote.utah.gov. More information on Evan McMullin, independent candidate for United States Senate here in Utah this year, evanmcmullin.com. I've linked to all of this on our Facebook page. And one last time, thank you to you, Mr. McMullin, for joining us here on the show, for taking the time and helping us complete our candidate spotlights. We're now done for the cycle, and really appreciate you taking some time out of your day for us to answer some of these questions for our listeners.
Well, thank you, Jason, and please call me Evan for the next time. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and I appreciate all you do to make sure that voters out there are introduced to candidates and have the information they need to make their choices. And I would offer my own encouragement, no matter who you're voting for, do go out and vote, because our system doesn't work unless your voices are heard, unless you're a part of it. This is a system of self-government we have in which, we voters hold the power, not our leaders. They should remain accountable to us, but that only works if we vote. So I'd offer my encouragement as well to everyone, no matter who you're voting for, make sure you get out and vote.
Absolutely. Well said, and I hope everyone takes that to heart. There is literally no reason not to, and it's easy to do here in Utah, so please, again, vote.utah.gov for voter information, evanmcmullin.com for information about Evan's campaign. And Evan, again, thank you for your time today. To our listeners, thank you for your time, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:33, and the news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. Family members of Gabby Petito today filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Moab Police Department in the latest development of the high-profile case around Petito's death. ABC's Alex Stone has more.
Moab, Utah police are defending their officers' interactions with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie 2 weeks before he murdered her in Wyoming. They say officers could not have predicted the future when police separated the two and sent them on their way. But the Petito family says police should have done more during that traffic stop in Utah when they investigated domestic abuse and should have arrested Laundrie, possibly saving Petito's life. Gabby's father, Joe.
Some things need to change, and changes haven't happened.
But Moab police say their officers acted with kindness, respect, and empathy toward Petito. Alex Stone, ABC News.
And her family is seeking $50 million in damages from Moab. Last Saturday, October 29th, the Wasatch Graffiti Busters came to Logan to pressure wash a large amount of painted graffiti off the walls of a cave located in Green Canyon. The volunteers usually take their weekends and clean paint off rocks and other graffiti in the forest. They use power washers and a chemical known as elephant snot that dissolves the paint and is biodegradable. Wasatch Graffiti Busters Peter Lenz and Scott Whipperman of Salt Lake City left at 8 a.m., got back around 6 p.m. last Saturday. Lenz said they spent about 6 hours working on the site. They mostly worked the Wasatch Front and Cottonwood Canyon area. Cleaning the Green Canyon Cave cost the organization about $500. Elephant snot cost $400 for 5 gallons. They learned about the cave graffiti in the spring, but they had a lot of other projects going on, so they had to wait until last weekend to work on it. This is the first time the Graffiti Busters have come to Cache Valley. Utah Highway Patrol troopers responding to a crash on I-15 on Wednesday found a man dead at the scene with a gunshot wound to his head, according to authorities. The crash involved a jackknifed vehicle hauler, which was blocking multiple southbound lanes at 5200 South in Murray. Sergeant Cameron Roden said at about 9:45 a.m., a white passenger vehicle and a semi-truck hauling cars were involved in a sideswipe incident. As a result, the semi jackknifed, blocking multiple lanes. Responding law enforcement discovered a man sitting in the driver's seat of the passenger vehicle had been shot in the head and was deceased. Investigators said it's not clear what happened between the time the crash happened and when troopers arrived on scene. UHP Lieutenant Jelaine Hawk said authorities have located a person who witnessed the crash, but not a witness to anything else. Hawk said the driver of the jackknifed car hauler was on scene and is cooperating with the investigation. She said it's possible the driver was shot during a road rage incident, but the investigation is still in its preliminary stages, and it's too early to tell. She did not say whether the truck driver was suspected of being involved in the man's death, if there may be an armed suspect on the loose, or if it's possible the gunshot wound was self-inflicted. It's also not clear if the shooting happened after the crash or if the crash may have been a result of the driver being shot. Hawks did not say if there were any weapons discovered at the scene. KVNU News Time is 5:37.
Recently, UNI Furniture took a call from Best Furniture, and they asked UNI to take all the display furniture from the Las Vegas Market Show. Because it's all display furniture, it's deeply discounted, and it's on sale now. Swivel, reclining, accented lift chairs, sofa loves and sectionals. And also, UNI just got a big order they placed over a year ago from Southern Motion, all at pre-inflation prices. You can take advantage of these sale prices and lay it away at no extra charge until the holidays. Big selection, great prices. That's why there's always a better buy at UNI Furniture in downtown Logan.
KVNU weather mostly clear tonight. Patchy fog after midnight, low 15 to 20. Some patchy morning fog, and then partly sunny in the morning, mostly cloudy by afternoon, and a 40% chance of snow. High temperature around 40. Chance of snow Friday evening, rain and snow after midnight. Little or no accumulation, low around 30. Rain and snow in the morning, rain in the afternoon expected on Saturday. 40 has been our high. It's 37 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. Expect specific guidance from advisors that adhere to principles of honesty, professionalism, and integrity. Visit adamswealthadvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Evan McMullin says he's independent. The Democrat Party knows he's not.
Cheers rang loud after Utah Democrats reached a decision
to join Evan McMullin.
Democrats chose to back him.
Why are Biden's allies pulling out all the stops to elect McMullin? Because he'd do their bidding in the Senate. Conservatives know he's a Democrat in disguise, but sometimes his mask slips. His positions on issues match the Democrat platform. He wants to weaken the filibuster, backed Biden's radical Supreme Court nominee, attacked police budgets, supported reckless spending, more debt. He's just another Biden liberal, even campaigned to make him president.
I plan to cast my vote for Joe. Imagine the America we can have.
Imagine the damage after 2 more years of a Democrat Senate giving Biden free rein. Utah can stop him if we stop McMullin first. Crypto Freedom PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising. Paid for by Crypto Freedom PAC. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. 202-971-1316.
Saturday afternoon, it's a 1:30 kickoff for the Aggies versus New Mexico Lobos. This will be a military appreciation game. Get yourself prepared with Aggie camo gear from Locker 42. Aggie logo t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, jackets, blankets, and more. Locker 42 is also happy to announce new Nike sideline gear is now starting to arrive. Get your camo Aggie gear for Saturday's military appreciation game. Locker 42, and you can shop either location, the North Store at 1430 North Main, next to Little Caesars, or the flagship store at 36 South Main. Locker 42.
This is the Green Canyon High School Sports Report for last week. Cross country competed at the state tournament on Tuesday, with the girls finishing 3rd place, the best in school history. Hadley Ballard, Haley Shakespeare, and Chelsea Shakespeare finished 5th, 7th, and 11th. The boys were led by Caleb Campbell, Dallin Bracken, and Clark Campbell, and finished 12th. Meanwhile, volleyball finished the season 4th place at the state tournament. The High School Sports Report is brought to you by Sadler Construction and Alpha Graphics.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. The midterm elections have seen roughly $9 billion in campaign money. We'll take a look at where that money comes from and who benefits. Plus, questions continue about whether members of Congress have enough security in today's tense political environment, and skirting pay transparency laws to get a 6-figure job. Friday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVN News for the people. It is still a pretty nice Thursday, at least looking out the window, but man, is it chilly. About 35 degrees here at the station right now. So it's going to be a cold one tonight. Bundle up. If you had any plants still alive in your garden, they're done after tonight. I actually surprisingly have one tomato still just struggling under a bit of cover. But moving right along with yet another special guest joining us here on the show today as part of what has been a monthly tradition throughout the year. We've been honored to help the Family Place celebrate their 40th anniversary of service here in northern Utah. The Family Place provides all kinds of resources for families, from critical counseling and even therapy services to things that might seem very simple to those of us who aren't parents but are critical to parents, like a place to drop the kids off for a couple of hours while you take another kid to a dentist appointment or run some errands. They also help families going through very traumatic scenarios find the other side of that situation, and their work is completely dependent on support from the community. Find out ways you can support the Family Place at thefamilyplaceutah.org. And we are joined here today again as part of our monthly effort to help them celebrate their 40th anniversary here in Cache Valley. Our good friend from the Family Place, director of the Kids Place at the Family Place, Krista Useche. And Krista, a pleasure to have you join us here today. It's tough for me to really explain the Family Place in a quick introduction because y'all do a lot, right?
Correct.
On purpose.
Yes.
This is, as you near the end of this 40th anniversary year, Tell us, looking back for the time you've been with them, looking ahead at some of the challenges coming. Obviously, things change and evolve, but there at the family place, you guys have put a lot of effort into trying to nail down what the critical needs in the community are, right?
Absolutely. Just being there to help the family, because we're all a part of one. So having a place to go when you're not sure what to do, whether it's through Kids Place education or therapy, we're here to help out.
That's actually a nice segue into where I wanted to start right off here, because after we parted ways last time I had a chance to speak with you here on the show, Krista, I realized we didn't talk about some of the education resources that are offered through the Kids Place at the Family Place. So tell us about those. This is an opportunity to augment education in various different ways, and I would imagine it's not easy to get this happening, right?
Right. Yeah. Our education department is awesome. They offer a variety of classes and workshops to help strengthen families. We have parenting classes. We have step family classes. If you're new to, that's a new situation for you. Being in a step family can be difficult to navigate. We also have a body safety course called Kids Empowered, and that's where they go into the schools in our community and teach kids about their bodies and that they are the ones in charge and they get to make choices for their bodies. Then we also have our mental health first aid training. There's both an adult and a teen version, and that's just much like first aid, right? We learned first aid to help save somebody's life. Well, mental health first aid is much the same, learning more about different mental illnesses and how to respond and how we can be there for people to help them through whatever situation it is and get them to the proper care that they need.
This is, it's almost overwhelming sometimes to think of what some of the challenges, that parents would be facing in today's day and age. And for kids, this is easy to forget. It's an equally confusing time. Do you see the challenges facing families evolving and changing? I mean, here we are coming out of a pandemic, which, of course, threw everyone's plan up in the air. As anxiety, through the roof.
Right.
Are things settling down? Are we getting back to at least a bit more of normal for families out there?
I mean, I would imagine as far as that goes, it's nice to be that we're all back in schools and
sure.
Services are up and running, that definitely helps. But it's brought new challenges of how to move forward, and man, I'm a parent as well of a teenager and trying to navigate through social media and all of this stuff that we didn't have when we were kids. It's tough to be able to figure out how to help our kids best because we didn't survive some of these things when we were younger. But we're here
sure.
to help offer support and classes to help navigate through all of these difficult times.
I think about that a lot, Krista. My parents, not that their time was easy by any means. I was a bit of a troublesome kid, rebellious, but the only thing they had to worry about were the hours with the TV on. And that was, as far as what I was exposed to outside of the home or from outside influence, as long as the TV wasn't on, they knew I was probably minding my business and being good.
Right.
Now you've got, as you mentioned, social media. You've got, access to all kinds of different media, much of it innocent and entertaining, much of it not. As you, put together the resources there at the Kids Place, what are you hearing from parents? What, when they come to the Family Place and say, here's a challenge that exists in our home right now, what are some of the most common things that come your way?
Man, all sorts of different things. Bullying is definitely been a thing and hard for people, especially with the social media, right? It's a lot easier to send a text than to say something to someone's face or to, post something somewhere. So it can be very challenging because it's very easy for kids to communicate without having, the reaction that we would have got when we were kids if you said something to someone's face.
Sure. This is, and I know the Family Place, you offer direct, and clinical intervention services like child abuse prevention services, but you also offer forward-thinking things. I love this, and maybe you can tell us a bit more about it as it applies to things like bullying or social media or the negative impact that, say, Instagram can have. We recently saw a report on that on young preteen children. But there is a resource at the FamilyPlaceUtah.org website called Creating a Kindness Culture. What is that? What does it mean to create a kindness culture?
I think we started a campaign a couple years back just about Be Kind Utah, and just trying to really understand that as people we need connections, and that really we should all be kind to one another because we're all going through something. We just don't know what it is, right? And we all know what a difference a kind person can make in your life.
Sure.
Just as simple as a smile or, complimenting someone. The world is tough enough. Everything that we're going through is hard. And so if we can just be kind to one another, that could really shape a community. That could change things.
Absolutely. And again, I've mentioned it briefly, but I have to focus on this because, as you and I have discussed, even off air before, Krista, the resource that this would have been to my parents at the time would have been immense. But one of the services the Kids Place offers there at the Family Place locations, 2 different locations here in the Valley, some time. You offer a service where there's this safe place with trained professionals where you can make through an appointment arrangements to drop the kids off when the parents need a break, a little time for some extra support themselves. Maybe it's just a bunch of errands that need to be run. Maybe one child has a dentist appointment and the other doesn't. Being able to just take an hour, 2 hours, and know you're leaving your kid or kids somewhere safe and also useful in the things they might learn while they're there. That's what the Kids Place is for. This has to be an immense service for overwhelmed parents.
Yeah, definitely. We're in Smithfield, Logan, and Hiram, and the service is completely free, and we do. Anybody that's a parent that has kids knows that there's that time where you're just like, I just need a break. I just need some space for a little bit just to be able to regroup, whether you just want to sit in the chair by yourself or, take a shower without someone knocking on the door or go to the store or an appointment. There's so many different things, but we've all, I think, experienced that moment when we would just love just a little bit of time. Not only is it a good break for the kids or the parents, it's also a break for the kids, right? That
Sure.
They get to go do something new, get out their wiggles, do whatever it is that they need to do so that when they come back together, it's healthy and we're able to move forward.
Absolutely. And it's a unique way to think about this, to be able to say to a parent, look, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you're worried about your own mental health. It happens probably to every parent at a certain point. And if you just need to go to a movie, go sit in a park, turn everything off, and including the lights, and sit in the dark with no noise for an hour or two, those count as justifiable reasons to take advantage of the Kids Place services, right?
Absolutely. And we do offer our date night service on Saturday nights from 5 to 9 p.m. For parents as well. That's completely free. They can drop off their kids so they don't have to pay for the child care. And if they want to go watch a movie and get dinner, there's time to do that and spend time together without the kids, because we know how that, once the kids come, you've got 18 years of not quiet.
That is the nicest way I've ever heard that said, and accurate. 18 years of not quiet, at least. Oh, man. Krista, it's a pleasure for us to be able to spotlight some of these services. And again, for listeners out there, the Family Place operates entirely on community support in one way or another. If you need their support, you can contact them at 752-8880 or visit their website, where you'll find every resource they offer described and detailed at thefamilyplaceutah.org. I've linked to that on our Facebook page. While you're there, though, check out ways you can volunteer, donate, donate, check out their Starfish Giving Machine, where you can actually see exactly what your donation will go towards, from stuffed black lab puppies as quasi-therapy animals for children in a stressful situation to basketballs for the playroom. You can fill the tank in the Family Place van, which they use to take many families into various critical services out there. They offer horse classes and therapy. They offer playtime at the Family Place that can be arranged. These kids' place break for the parent services. All of that requires your support, either through financial donations or volunteered time. So please take a minute, check out the resources they offer, but also the resources that you might have to offer that they are in need of at thefamilyplaceutah.org. Linked again on our Facebook page. And our guest, again, here celebrating throughout the year 40 years in Cache Valley, offering these resources, thefamilyplaceutah.org. Again, their website. And our guest, again, Kids Place Director at the Family Place, Krista Useche. And Krista, a pleasure to have you join us here on the show. And we'll check in again next month for our final 40th year celebration interview.
Sounds great. I also do want to say it is our giving campaign right now, since you mentioned that.
Oh,
and
yes.
we have a donor that has offered to match all of our donations up to $100,000.
Oh, wow.
So anything you give to the Giving Machine or to the Family Place will be matched up until the end of the year.
Oh, great.
So it's an exciting time to give because, we can double our services.
Perfect. Make your donation go even further by giving now. I see those details here at the website. I'm sorry I had missed that. Check that out, thefamilyplaceutah.org. Not only a good resource to give to, but a perfect time to do that giving with this promised match. So help them celebrate 40 years in Cache Valley. And again, Kids Place Director at the Family Place, Krista Useche. Appreciate you taking some time for KVNU today.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
And to our listeners, thank you for being listeners. Please stay tuned. We'll be back with more right after this.
When Evan McMullin backed Joe Biden for president, he voted for every single catastrophic policy Biden's gang of socialists and tyrants inflicted on struggling Utah families. 40-year high inflation, crushing taxes, open borders, and lost freedoms. It was a bad call, but McMullin's got no regrets. We can't give Evan McMullin a second chance. We need Mike Lee now more than ever, our constant constitutional defender who never gives an inch to the forces who would destroy American freedom. The Biden-McMullin agenda drove Utahns' cost of living sky high. But Mike Lee has been a bulwark, shielding us from Joe Biden's thoughtless leadership, standing strong against rampant spending, lawless borders, and creeping socialism, even when he's had to stand alone.
I'm Mike Lee, and I approve this message because I love Utah. I love our country, and it's been my honor to serve as your senator.
Mike Lee for Senate. Paid for by Friends of Mike Lee, Incorporated.
Welcome to Everyone's Metal Store. Home to tons of metal products for the DIYer or experienced pros. With a sales staff ready to assist with any type of metal question. Palmer's Metal Mart in Logan is your metal store, no matter the size of your project. With one of the state's best selections of metal products under one roof, you will love the price and selection at Metal Mart. For almost 30 years, for projects big or small, customers have found their home for metal products and extraordinary service to be at Metal Mart. No matter your knowledge of metal products, Metal Mart is here to serve. Give us a call or come into our store in Logan and see why we're everyone's metal store. If you need metal roofing, tubing or pipe, sheet metal, angle iron, purlins or rebar, call Palmer's Metal Mart today. When it comes to metal, just remember Palmer's Metal Mart, everyone's metal store. It's that simple. Visit us online at palmersmetalmart.com or in Logan, just east of the airport. Steel, service, and savings. See you soon.
We all have a friend like Evan.
Guys, could you spot me a few bucks for the game?
But what happens when it's time for Evan to pay up?
I don't have it right now, but you know I'm good for it.
Nobody likes a deadbeat, and chronic deadbeat Evan McMullin has raised millions of dollars for his special interest groups. But in true deadbeat form, instead of paying off the nearly $700,000 in debt from his presidential campaign, he took the money and paid his own company millions of dollars. Liberty Champions PAC is responsible for the contents of this ad.
This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. This Saturday is our 52nd annual fall sale, our biggest sale of the year. Get Black Friday pricing Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Plus, when you buy more, you save more. Up to a $500 instant rebate on select purchases. Wait, there's more. Triple dip in savings with an additional Daryl's exclusive mail-in rebate. Save up to $800 more on select purchases. Save 30 to 50% on scratch and dent appliances. Financing available. Plus, you get our service backing every sale. Listen for a live radio broadcast Saturday from 10 to 1. Daryl's West on Airport Road.
That's our show for today. Appreciate everyone tuning in and hope you'll do so again tomorrow. Thanks to Evan McMullin for joining us this hour, Charlie Schill for spending the last hour with us talking theater, and of course Krista Useche, our good friend from the Family Place. Please get out and support them in any way you can. What they do is critical and done by no other organization here in northern Utah. Family Place celebrating 40 years this year. TheFamilyPlaceUtah.org for more. Tomorrow on the program, we've got some catching up to do. We got a bit off, even had to skip a show. Andy Morgan is joining us tomorrow for a special 2-hour For the People movie show, looking ahead at the holiday movie season and more. That starts tomorrow at 4 p.m. Be sure to tune in to a special 2-hour movie show with Andy Morgan. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
News and talk around the clock.
I listen to you all the time.
News Talk KVNU.